What's up, guys? This is CoachDonny with ElevateYourself.org. Last February, I attended the USA Volleyball High Performance Coaching Clinic that was hosted in Colorado Springs, which is the Olympic Training Center. The main reason why I attended that clinic is because the legendary Karch Kiraly was going to be one of the speakers at the coaching clinic. And I couldn't pass up this opportunity because one of my lifelong goals was to meet Karch. Now, who is this old guy with a weird name, you might ask? Well, let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Karch Kiraly. He is the winningest player in volleyball history. And I'm not just talking about indoor volleyball, I'm also talking about beach volleyball. He won 2 indoor gold medals in the 1984 and 1988 Olympics. He also won a gold medal in the 1996 Beach Volleyball Olympics. He won 3 NCAA collegiate championships when he attended UCLA. He won 148 professional beach tournaments, where his last victory was at the age of 44, and he retired at the age of 46 while still playing at the highest level. Karch is also the head coach of the USA Women's National Team, where he coached them to a gold medal at the World Championships in 2014, which is their first gold medal in the program history, and also a bronze medal at the 2016 Rio Olympics. Needless to say, Karch knows how to win as a player and as a coach. But my favorite quality of Karch is that he is a down-to-earth and good person. He's modest about his accomplishments, he's more about the team than about himself, and he's always giving back to the community, especially the volleyball community. It was such an honor and a privilege to finally meet Karch at the USA Coaching Clinic. I'll be honest, when I first saw him, I was pretty nervous, and it was so surreal because I was so used to seeing him in Volleyball magazine, on TV, and playing in all these professional indoor and beach tournaments, and to finally meet him was truly a life experience for me. He actually took the time to talk to me for a couple minutes about volleyball and in life, and he was just a very engaging person, and I really appreciate that about him. If you want to learn more about my experience at the USA Volleyball High Performance Coaching Clinic, you can watch my vlog by clicking on the link up here. I recorded this presentation that Karch gave where he talks about his transitions through the decades of volleyball in his life. I hope you enjoy his talk as much as I did.
What are we doing in here and not going straight to the gym and playing some volleyball after that? My gosh, I'm ready to go. That is a great friend of ours. Some of you probably know him, Chris McGee, who I think he does still. It was really nice of Coach Jarrett Elliott, to come here and share some neat things with us last night and today. And I think on a regular basis, Geeter still does, via Skype, introductions like that for the Texas team in their locker room, wherever Geeter is and wherever Texas is. And so that's kind of their last thing before they run out onto the court. Not a bad way to go, because it's sport. And really, I think it's been a ton about, which button do I push here? Let's see. It's been about learning. In fact, that could have been me. When we first got to Santa Barbara when I was, like I said, 6 years old, we went for my dad's internship here at Medicine. I had grown up in Michigan. My dad met my mom at the University of Michigan, and then he was in medical school there. And I did all kinds of stuff at the beach in big holes. That's not actually me, although it could have been. It's just all of these beginnings and all these things that I've been through have been learning adventures. Most of all, first and foremost. I was just talking to one of this is a big year for USA. We'll have a lot of new faces in the gym. We have some retirements. For example, our captain, Krista Dietzen, has retired. Kayla Banworth's retired. She's now embarking on her own new adventure coaching at Nebraska. And so we're talking to lots of new people who will be spending some time in our gym, and it was just a pleasure to be talking to had to be one of the finalists at least, if not more, for National Player of the Year in the sport of NCAA Division I college volleyball. And she said, you know what, in the last couple of years, I've learned to love to learn. And that's gonna take her a long, long way. We're trying to build a culture of not being afraid of making mistakes, because we know that we're impeding our learning process. If we're not trying new stuff, if we're not operating at the edge of our abilities, then we're going to learn at a slower rate. And if we are screwing up, and if we are trying things in the gym that are ugly and chaotic and random, and it looks awful at first, but it has to. I talked to you last night about Rachel Adams and how far she's come the last few years to where she earned a starting position for us in the Rio Olympic Games. Rachel came to us as a really strong blocker, really strong hitter off 2 feet. She was an absolute tragedy, a car wreck off of 1 foot behind the setter. It was not pretty, and she fought through it. And she made mistake after mistake. And she was not easily embarrassed, and her teammates were cheering her on the whole way. I think about, because later in life I went to play a little volleyball in Italy and picked up a language there, and I think about people who pick up languages, especially as adults, pick up a second language or other languages. And the ones who do, if you think about it, the ones who are good at that are not easily embarrassed, because you got to try it. You just got to throw stuff out there. And I stuck my foot in my mouth all the time in Italy and said the wrong thing, and sometimes said really the wrong thing. But you just got to throw it out there. And the people who are easily embarrassed are not good learners. And we need to be learners. I told our team, our USA team 4 years ago, when we first got together in May of 2013, everybody came all back together from all around the world. I told them, I'm not good enough yet. We're not good enough yet. And that's okay, because this is a place of becoming. It's not a place of being. And so those are kind of some of the lifelong lessons in the transitions I've made. So as a beginning player, I first got on a court when I was 9 years old with my dad, but I had already watched a lot of volleyball. I'm glad I was watching to learn how not rotate and torque at all on this picture, but I watched a lot of high-level volleyball. So that's the sign of that's going to help anyone learn. Most of our players that we coach, they'll tell you they're visual learners. They want to see examples. They want to see demonstrations. I actually think that growing up, I was fortunate, not disadvantaged, but fortunate that there was no club volleyball when I grew up. Now you might think, well, why is that? It's because all the models I had were adults doing it at a very high level. So I was seeing it from my earliest days on the court, how to do it pretty right, instead of being a 10 or 12-year-old watching other 10 and 12-year-olds doing it pretty wrong as they're trying to learn to do it more right. So I had all these great models of how to do it. It also gave me thousands and thousands of more opportunities to build a visual encyclopedia, because I wasn't learning to read 12-year-olds. That's not what I needed to do once I got to the USA men's team. I needed to be able to read top-level players doing it in ways that I aspired to do it too. So I was an observer, and that was really important. And I was also, as I went through this, I was a doer. And you just got to get out there and try stuff and see what works and see what doesn't. John Kessel, who is sitting in the back here too, is a big advocate of, and I agree with him in terms of just this guided discovery way of trying to foster the most or maximize the speed of the learning process with our teams and our players. But that means they got to do, and sometimes it's going to blow up in your face and we're going to screw up. I got to do stuff too. I thought that story last night, for those of you who got to hear from Jarrett, was really powerful. How he had hit a wall in his career, in his coaching career. And then he decided to open up a little. Part of his renaissance, I guess, as a coach was being willing to let his players into his vulnerability and his imperfection. And I think they've resonated a lot to that. Their culture has come, as he said, has come light years since those times when he faced some pretty dark times. And it's because he's okay with letting them know that he's imperfect. I'm okay with letting our team know. I got to be working at the edge of my abilities. And we got to try something new. And I'll be the first one to say, whoa, that didn't work. I really screwed up there. All right, so we'll be better tomorrow. We got to try stuff. We got to push at the edge of our abilities. So, and then we got, I love this quote from one of probably your most recent posts, John, when you visited Clint Hurdle and the Pittsburgh Pirates organization. One of their many key things, I love this, was having a white belt mentality, a beginner's mentality. Maybe a beginner's set of eyes of noticing things that an expert wouldn't notice, things that strike you as odd or as unusual but might stand out to you in a way to speed up your learning process. So rather than an expert's mentality, I think it's great and has served me well and serves a lot of us in our organization well in terms of having a white belt mentality. How do we start over? How do we look at everything we do and review it and say, what can we do better? Question everything that we do each year, and especially at the end of every 4-year process, to see how we can get better. So we ask questions, and finally we listen. So I listened a lot growing up, and most of you, maybe a few of you, would be familiar with my dad, who was a very fierce competitor. On the sand at East Beach, he was extremely loud. You would hear him before you saw him there. He said things like, he escaped from Hungary and came over here in this country in 1956, but he would say things to me as we were playing like, rise and think, jump and hit that ball, Karch. And he had this running dialogue on the court. So that naturally led me to be a pretty quiet guy, but I listened a lot. I listened to him, and I listened to all these really good players that were across the net or just on the beach or would come into town for tournaments. I couldn't get enough of the sport. My friends and I in high school would subscribe to Volleyball magazine and Volleyball Monthly, and there was no internet. There was no way to see live action of these players that we built up in our minds, these pictures of these Cuban guys who are like 5'11" and blocking like this on a men's net, or these Russian guys who are just, they were our idols. And all we could do was build visuals of what they did on the court because there was no live action to be found. Now you can find it everywhere. You can find it, I just pointed some of our people a couple of days ago to a YouTube post of the 1976 Montreal Olympic final, an epic final, where Poland beat the what we now call Russia, back then was the Soviet Union. Bill Neville, you've got to ask him sometime. He has some great stories about the extreme confidence of the Polish coach at that time. But it's fascinating to watch, even a skill like this. At that time, the ball, if I were an attacker and I hit it and it just touched the block at all, the block counted as a touch. So you can go back and watch this match, and it's stunning to watch that. Here comes this hard-driven ball. It barely touched our block. I come up with it, or the player on this team. It's spinning, it's 30 feet in the air, it's 17 feet off the net, and somebody goes up and just rips it back over because that's the third contact. So it's jarring to my eye, but it's also amazing that they could develop this ability when it needed to be done. So those are the things that I learned a lot just from in terms of watching, doing, asking, and listening. And then I got to be a beginning coach. And it really started when our boys played in high school. They didn't play much volleyball until then. One of our boys was a freshman. He was a ninth grader. The other was 1 year behind in eighth grade. They're only 1 grade apart. And they had a really tough, the older boy on the high school varsity team had a really tough freshman year. They lost every match of the season. So they were 0-31. They lost every game of every match. They were 0-93 on the season. And my wife and I were sitting there just thinking, God, could they just win one game to 25 points? That would be so cool. One time they were up 20-10 and figured out a way to let that slip away and lost 25-23. So my wife said, you got to start helping them out a little there. And I said, you know what, I really do. I just want to see them get to 25 once. We'll give up the other 92 games of volleyball. And so I asked the school if I could jump in, and immediately I was fortunate enough for them to say yes. The first thing I did was sign up for a coaching clinic. Marv was going to host a coaching clinic, and he did it out in Malibu. And it was fantastic. I had not done a lot of coaching. If you'd asked me 2 years before, if you was a coach, are you going to get into coaching? I said, no, I don't think I have the patience for that. I was still competing, because I competed until I was 46 years old. So I just didn't even really think about coaching. A lot of you have probably been coaching far longer than I have. I'm a very young coach in coaching years, because this is just less than, actually when I started coaching that high school team, it was exactly 10 years ago. So that's my coaching career. But I also got to watch a ton of the Masters. My high school coach, Rick Olmstead, our UCLA coach, the master, the other wizard of Westwood, Al Skates, 19 NCAA championships in 50 years of college coaching. Of course, then for Doug Beal and Bill Neville on the USA team, and then after they were done playing for Marv Dunphy. And so I had this, this store of experiences, this whole filing cabinet of the things that I really resonated to in each of them. And they're all very different people and all really good coaches. And for one thing that just stood out to me is that none of those coaches were trying to be something they weren't. Each of us has strengths and weaknesses, and all of them were playing to their strengths. And so that's, even though we have these models out there, it's really good to keep in mind and to watch them at work. And I would go in to visit Marv's gym and Al's gym, and certainly lots of other gyms. Watch Nev work up in his volleyball salon up in Seattle, and so I just got to see them in action. So one thing I would suggest to you, because you might maybe not think that this is okay, but there are lots of really good coaches around the country who would be glad to have visitors. And our gym, our USA gym, our gym is open to the public. Our doors are always wide open. We love having visitors. We love having new sets of eyes. And so there is nothing proprietary about what we do. We always try to err, and remind me at the end, I have a story about that, but we try to err on the side of openness rather than proprietary and closed and hiding what we try to do. So I had some stuff to draw on watching-wise, and then we got to try and do stuff. And one of the great models for me was Bill Neville, one of the most creative minds I've ever run across in volleyball, and he would get us to try any new drill, any new activity, run through walls for him. We have some great inside stories about some drills gone horrendously wrong, and we still poke fun at him over them. But he tried stuff, and it wasn't just trying for trying's sake, it was trying to solve a problem. Hey, we're not doing this so well, so why don't we try this? Let's look at this activity that we've never done before to see what we can do to get better. He was a great model, and all the coaches that I got to to play for and coaches I look at as models of mine, or role models, or idols, or mentors, they all are looking to try stuff. I think of a coach like John Cook at Nebraska. Every year, he's maybe a bit of a polarizing figure in volleyball. Lots of people love him. Some people don't like him very much. He's incredibly passionate about the game and about getting better. Every year, he says, I'm coming out to Anaheim. I got a list of like 45 questions for you. And so we're going to talk volleyball. And he's just always looking to learn and to add to what they're doing. That's what the great ones do. It's all about learning. So I had great models for doing and trying stuff and asking. What a great question that we can always ask is, what can we learn from this? What can I learn from this? Reflection is a big part of what I try and do in terms of after matches, after training, after a big competition, after 4 years. What is it that I can do better? What is it I can learn from this process? We do a lot of kind of surveys and feedback with our players, just like Jarrett was talking about with Texas. And even in the middle of a training, that's a great question to ask of a team in this guided discovery. Something happened here. What can we learn from this? Is there something that I can do better? You can do better. Is there something you can do better for her to help her help her do her job better? Certainly, I love to listen and visit other gyms myself. I like to listen to you all, and that's one of the reasons I love coming here. Is there's always something to learn. Each one of you has things that you can teach me. In fact, let's see. I meant to. It's back a few pages. There was a humility mention there, and there's a great quote that I meant to. I'm going to go backwards and read it to you from a book that resonated a lot with me. One of my favorite books of the last 4 or 5 years by a neat guy named Eric Greitens. It's just a simple title called Resilience. He's a former Navy SEAL who was helping a deep friend through some very serious and tough times. And so in this book, he talks about his daily humility mantra. And it goes like this. I begin with humility, I act with humility, I end with humility. Humility leads to clarity. Humility leads to an open mind and a forgiving heart. With an open mind and a forgiving heart, I see every person as superior to me in some way, and every person as my teacher. And with each of those people, I grow in wisdom. As I grow in wisdom, humility becomes ever more my guide. I begin with humility, I act with humility, I end with humility. So that's his daily humility mantra. And it's a beautiful thing to just realize that each of you has, John shared this amazing story of dying, literally dying, and then what he has now in his life. And each of you has amazing stories that I wish we all had the time to learn, but they're out there, and there's something from each of you that would be really, at least one thing that would be really powerful for all of us to hear. So then I made this other transition. Our boys like to joke, I guess I didn't finish that part. They did much better the next season. In fact, we came out after some nice training, played the first match of that next season. Now, one of our sons is a 10th grader, the other's 9th. And we come out and play a team that had just beaten us like a drum the year before, just crushed us. And I think we won 25-19. And our team, our boys' high school team, acted like they had just won the Olympic gold medal. Like they're just going crazy. It was awesome. But then I said, hey, let's calm down here. You know, if we do one of those, maybe we could do another one. So eventually they won the match and went on to do better and better each year, and eventually won like a California sectional title. So it was a really great lesson for them and for me on learning and starting at the absolute bottom, but with a lot of hard work and mindful effort and some guided discovery, things like that, who knows how far you could go. It was a really powerful thing for them. Anyway, our boys joke that's the route to becoming a member of the USA coaching staff, is just coach their varsity team that was and whatever for a couple of years, and then run into Hugh and get asked to be coached on the team. Hugh and I were actually, I try to be a learner, definitely about that. Hugh and I were on a flight. I was talking to Bill Neville. That was after Hugh had won the gold medal coaching the men's team in Beijing. They had a fantastic Olympics, and Hugh had decided to become the women's coach, decided to switch disciplines or switch sexes, coach the other team. So he was going up right after January, after the new year came in 2009, and Nev had let me know he was having a CAP 1 coaching clinic, or a CAP coaching clinic up in Seattle, and I'm about learning. I had no idea about anything with USA, and so I signed up. I'm going, great, I want to hear from Hugh and from Nev, and who else did you have there? You had a whole slew of guys. It was a great lineup. Yeah, exactly, Brad, Russ Rose, I don't know, just a bunch of people. It was like, yeah, I gotta be there. What's not to learn? What's not to hear about? And Hugh and I are on the same flight on the way up, and he said, yeah, I got a weird thought. Do you want to coach on the U.S. team? Wow, okay, that's interesting. So I had consulted with him a little. USA had, obviously, Hugh switched over, so there was a vacancy on the men's side. And USA was smart to talk to tons of people. I was one of many, many people they talked to about that, and I consulted with Hugh, and I just felt like I was not even close to the level of preparation to honor the job and honor the program. So I'm sure I wasn't the leading or contending candidate, but I just didn't feel it was right. So here was an opportunity to work with Hugh and maybe develop enough of an experience to be able to coach at the head coaching level. So obviously it's a little intimidating. At first, I don't think I was taking advantage of the opportunity to learn enough. Here's somebody who's coached a gold medal winning team, and I did a lot of watching and not enough of enough coaching, enough of asking questions and things like that. But that's part of this watch and do and ask and listen that I've been trying to go over for my whole career. So that was that do part. Heading up to Seattle, and little did I know, after going for my CAP 1 module, a couple of months later, I ended up being a part of Hugh's staff on the USA women's team. So I guess that's another route to take to the USA staff. But it's a great question to ask. Why? What's the logic? So I eventually I got bold enough to ask Hugh, and I asked lots of people, why do you do this? Or what's the logic behind it? Or why do you do that? And that's one of the things I love about visiting other people's gyms is I'll see, whoa, wow, I really like that. Why are you doing that? Or I'll think, whoa, I don't like that at all, but I'm curious as to the logic behind that. I'm thinking there must be some good logic. I also love to ask, Coach Jarrett last night talked about how he's trying to make it so human, student-athlete centered for his Texas program. And I try to do that a lot with our USA team. So that's a standard tack that I'll do, especially with players who are just new to our gym. I'll just say, look, it may be obvious to you, but it's not to me. Tell me the 3 things I most need to know to be a great coach for you. It could be anything. It might be obvious. It might be something I could never guess in a million years, but I'd love to hear it. And so I get some really, really neat answers. There's one of our players who has played a nice role for us. She said, I have a soft exterior, but I'm a lot tougher than I look. I'm also a lot more competitive than I look with that exterior. And I love feedback. Maybe sometimes I don't look like I do, but I always want to have a focus in every activity that I'm doing. So I found that that's a nice way to kind of open the door with some of our new players, is tell me 3 things I need to know about you to be the best coach that I can be for you. And of course, that's just the beginning of what's hopefully a long and productive dialogue. And I love to listen, certainly to my boss with Hugh, to my peers as coaches, to our players. I'm asking for feedback a lot. We had Marv Dunphy help us out a few years ago, where our coach in 2014 was Tom Black, but he had to go back to his Loyola Marymount program. And it just impressed our players that as soon as he got there to help us coach at World Championships, they were saying, wow, Mark's been coaching a long time. It's been 7, 8 Olympics, and he's asking me, like, so what do you need more of? What do you need less of? That really struck our team and each of our players as somebody who's open to being really good for them. So that's where we're always asking these questions and trying to listen. And then made another transition to head coach after Hugh retired, or coached for those 4 years, and then went on to Minnesota. And there were some things that I definitely wanted to include our players on, but it was like, all right, here's how the team has been. Is that how we want it to continue? I definitely felt like when we lost that final in London against Brazil, that at some point, when the storm really came at us, we didn't have this tight team synergy and this thing of we're absolutely in it for each other no matter what the outcome. The exact thing that Bill just talked about on this stage a few minutes ago, how important that is. Because no team wins a tournament like a World Championships, like an Olympics, like an NCAA Championships, without facing down major adversity. For Stanford, it was being down 2-0 this year in the NCAA playoffs at Wisconsin. And they got the intermission, and they came back out and they won. So they faced down major adversity. I didn't feel like we had enough to face down the adversity that Brazil threw at us in that gold medal match in London. And so I knew what I wanted it to look like, but I certainly wanted to involve our players a lot in this process of what tweaks, what things are we looking to be better at culture-wise. Do we want it to be more of a culture of learning? I sure do. I was hoping they do too, because I want them to embrace that. They're going to drive a lot of that process. I can't just impose or force that upon them. So I watched the previous and certainly had a vision for what we wanted to do. Our players were highly involved in it. And then, as Bill mentioned, there were some times when he had to make decisions that weren't easy ones, that had consequences for some people and consequences for the rest of the group. I faced the same kinds of things also. Some things that would easily be considered very controversial or difficult decisions. But that was a part of me learning. I had to take some actions, take some risks, be willing to make mistakes, but show to our program that I'm serious about setting up a culture where learning is key, where growing is key, where we're safe to be ourselves, but we're also all obligated to be trying to be a better version of ourselves each and every day. And then we still ask. So I do that now. I have done that a couple of years ago. After the 2014 season, we set up an anonymous survey, which are easy to do online. You can do it lots of ways, SurveyMonkey and others. But the way you make it anonymous and make it safe for our players to know that no answer can be tracked down to them. I just want it completely safe. Want the unvarnished truth on our staff. So all of our players did a survey, filled out a survey on all 8 of our main staff members. a list of questions in terms of kind of grading us on how we are able to help them with things like their competitiveness and their mindfulness, and then just open-ended questions. What are a couple of things that this staff member, 1, 2, 3 things that this staff member does really well for you? And what are one, 2, or 3 things that this staff member can do better for you? Opportunities for improvement. And so that was a great learning experience. I'd love to have peers and mentors come into our gym and tell me what they see and hear feedback. We'll have visitors in our gym, and after we train, I'll just say, so, what'd you see? I'd love to hear different perspectives. It might be something that didn't even occur to me. But that peer review, or that team review of our staff, I found really productive. It can be a little scary, but it's good to hear these things. Ultimately, we need to hear that feedback. And so we asked our players if they wanted to do that, and they said they did. So we did the same thing. A year later, we had a peer review, each player giving some feedback to each of her teammates, all in the effort of, all in the guise or in the spirit of getting better, of learning. So I also listen, especially when Krista has that look on her face. I'm going to be listening a lot. So we had some really powerful people in our leadership group, people like Krista Armato Dietzen and Alicia Glass and Courtney Thompson and Tama Miyashiro. And so when you can find some people on your team that always have your team's best interests at heart, I love hearing their feedback. We want to work them like crazy. And there are some people on your team that you can't ask, like, okay, so how you doing? And so somebody might say, I'm exhausted, and you're like, I'm not sure I could buy that answer. And then there are other people on your team that you can absolutely trust, because they'll run through walls to make the team better. And so we need to hear that stuff. We need to hear about how they're feeling. It could be a really hot week in Anaheim. Everybody's, it's 100 degrees every day, 95% humidity, and we're doing our best to do our work, but we also have to be cognizant of energy levels and of recovery, and all of our staff does the same thing. Jimmy and everybody else, we've got to be really cognizant. Jimmy's got to be able to turn on a dime. If we have a tough workout and all of a sudden it's 105 in the weight room and everybody comes in and their tongues are dragging on the floor, most of his plans, unfortunately, we didn't mean it that way, but that makes some major revisions because we got to be cognizant of recovery too. So we're always trying to adapt and adjust, and I think that's the end of it. Yeah, it is. Talking about this, I thought this was really interesting. One of the great coaches in the world is Bernardo Rezende, who coached the Brazilian men to the gold medal this last Olympics. And so he came in to visit our gym almost exactly a year ago. He was coaching Courtney at the time, playing for a Brazilian club team. And of course, we're going to say yes. It could be our major competitors. We're never going to say no. We're fine. We feel like there's a lot more for us to learn if we're open and not keeping secrets. So he came in and watched, and then we finished our Olympic qualifier, and about a week later, Courtney goes back to her team, and on the second day of training, Bernardo set up one of those simple flip scorekeeping, flip score sheets, or not score sheets, but scoreboard. Thank you. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even think of that. Set up a scoreboard, and somebody had been playing for him for about 10 years, just about passed out and fell out on the floor, and Courtney's going like, "What's going on? What's the problem?" And her teammate said, "You're not going to believe this, but this is the first time I've been playing for Bernardo for 10 years, and this is the first time we've ever kept score in any activity ever in our gym." So, I guess a couple of things. I would have lost my house on that bet. I'm thinking there is no way that they would go for 10 years without ever keeping score. I was stunned to learn that from one of the top coaches that's ever done this in the game. So I said, all right, well, there's got to be a good reason. Courtney, what's the reason for this? And this is just the benefit of having an open gym, having visitors, exchanging information, even if it's indirectly. And she said, well, the hypothetical is, we should, as players, learn, regardless of the score, to go as hard as we can on this given play. And so the theory is, we're not going to have a score because we go hard for this play and we reset and we go hard for the next play. I said, you know what? That makes sense. That's got some reason to it. And so I said, but Court, what's the reality? And Court said, the reality is it was the most fun and most intense that it had been all season. It was 10 times better than anything we had done all season. So you can only ask for so much in a hypothetical sense, but he came to our gym, he saw people playing for a score, and he brought it back, and Courtney was the beneficiary of that, and learned that you can have these, these hypothetical wants and needs, but the reality is, it is really fun to compete. It might not be fun after when we find out the final score, but it sure is fun to compete. And it's not the only coach I know of that does this. So in a very odd way, maybe we in this country, because Americans are thought of as quite competitive, quite individual. We pride in our individual liberties, things like that. So we're used to competing a lot. And not every country is. And so I know plenty of other coaches who do not ever keep score. Courtney played for another coach. Let me finish I had one more question for Courtney. I said, all right, so you don't have a scoreboard. How do you know when the activity is done? And she said, well, here's what will happen. We'll play back and forth. A serve will come in. Ball will come in, something will happen, he'll like it, he'll say, oh great, I like that, do it again, or something will happen, oh I don't like that, we got to fix that, here, do it again. 7 or 8 minutes, they're going back and forth, and finally a long rally will happen, and it'll end, and everybody will go, yeah, and kind of like look over and try and talk him, and oh yeah, that seems like a good time to stop the activity, so it's kind of like, so that's how they would end. There was not really a goal or not really a score or anything, and that's how they figured out how to do that. And lots of coaches around the world do that. So kind of learned that maybe we're just the beneficiary without lifting a finger of doing things that give our team a little more motivation and a little more fun in our gym. We don't do anything, I wouldn't know to do it any other way, but other people are doing it a different way. That leads our players to come back to our gym and be incredibly thrilled to get back in there and actually have a scoreboard and a growth and learning development mindset. So that's kind of my journey through this sport as a beginning player, as a beginning coach, as a beginning assistant, as a beginning head coach. And the more I learn, the more I know that I don't know, and it's an incredibly fun journey along the way. I got some nice words earlier today. Somebody shared with me that they just appreciate that we're trying to, I guess, kind of infect, it was from Shelton, infect the system with this idea of we're all learners and we can all be better. And so hopefully we're all, our staff, the men's staff, and USA Volleyball in general are infecting you with that, because ultimately our players, yours and ours, are only going to play volleyball for so long. But if they learn to love learning and they learn what learning is and how to be good at it, we've given them the greatest gift of all, because they're going to be living way over half their life on average, maybe most players finish by 30 or early 30s with USA. Average lifespan these days is pushing 80 or beyond every year. Medicine gets better and better. They've got so much ahead of them beyond volleyball, but what a gift that we can give them is just teaching them how to be good learners. Learn to be a good spouse, learn to be a good parent, learn to raise a good family, learn to be a great teammate in any career, because any career we have, we're working with groups of people that's working in teams. So that's where this is really a metaphor, and so hopefully we're helping them on a much deeper level than just learning about volleyball, but just being good learners in life. And so there you have it. Thank you. I don't know what our timing is, but we can open it up to some questions.
Do about 5 minutes.
Okay, do I need to repeat them?
Yes, please.
Great. Any questions? Yes.
Aside the obvious answers, what do you think could be a catalyst for a professional league in the United States?
That might be above my pay grade, but I know lots of things have been tried, and nobody's come up yet with the, I guess, sustainable formula. From what I know, and I could be wrong, and I say that plenty of times, I could be wrong, but the information I have is that the WNBA, that would be an example of a professional female sports league, has yet to break even, and they're close to 20 years old now. So, and they have a lot more backing behind it, and they're lucky to have a great partner in the NBA. And so if they have not figured out yet how to have that even be a break even, it's still a big, tough nut to crack. I'm not saying it can't be done, I'm just saying there's a lot to learn from that example, and there's a lot to learn, a lot of learning to be done, period, to create something, because without a mega partner like the NBA, we're going to have to figure out how to do it with the right balance of revenues and expenses. And they haven't figured it out yet. And what a huge boost for women's soccer, the 1998 World Cup, and that led to the start of a league that eventually was not sustainable. It pains me. I'd love to see these leagues thriving. The WNBA thriving, a women's volleyball league thriving, a men's volleyball league thriving. Our athletes, I know, they would love that. Most of them are out of the country right now, playing in places like China, Korea, Japan, Brazil, Puerto Rico, France, Austria, Germany, Italy, Poland, Turkey. They're playing all over the world, and they would love to, at least every few years, play on their home soil. They would take way, 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 way less money to do so, because they'd get to maybe spend Thanksgiving at home for the first time in umpteen years, or get a few days at Christmas, or whatever it is. There's a quality of life here too, just to get to be at home. There's also this beautiful opportunity for learning new language, learning about new cultures, things like that. But at times, especially if you're the only player on a team in China or Japan, you're in some real isolation. Really nice people around you, but not many of them speak English, and you're dealing with some really challenging languages there. So you have to have be a special kind of person to be able to endure that, and not all of our players thrive under that environment. So I'd love to see it happen. It probably can't be franchises all around the country and these mega travel expenses. So lots of things have been tried, and there's lots of learning still to be done. But Matt Furbringer, would you guess the same for the men's team, that a lot of them would take a whole lot less money to get to play on USA soil every once in a while? Yeah. And there's a very good quality of life in Italy, for sure. So it's a tough nut to crack. But the long-term dream is that will happen. There are, I don't know, something like 275 women now playing overseas in about 40 countries. Only 25 or so of them are actually in the USA national team system. The rest are not. So that's about 250 American players who will never represent their country at our level, who want to keep playing, love to keep playing enough to go do it, maybe for as little as a few $100s a month in Indonesia or Thailand or something like that. But they're doing it for the experience. And they too would like to keep playing. They have a love for this game. We have a love for this game. We'd love for them to have that opportunity. Nice challenge, for sure, to look forward to and to work on. Any other questions? Yes?
Speaking directly to your coaching experience, what's your favorite moment as a coach?
My favorite moment as a coach, well, one of them would have to be when that high school team won for the first time in almost 2 years. Another would be, it's more of a quiet moment, and I think Rob Browning was there for that. But when I began coaching the USA team, I took over the job in September, but everybody doesn't really get back into the country until April and May. And so it's May of 2013, and we're talking about embracing adversity, about learning, about new challenges. And we go on our first trip in early June to the Pan American Cup down in Peru, and something got mixed up. And they were expecting us at 3 p.m. the next day at the hotel, but we got there at 1 a.m., so the p.m. and the a.m. got mixed up. And so we had no rooms at 1 o'clock at night. This was on, I don't think we were playing the next day. But we have been talking so much about how we will embrace whatever and lean into whatever comes at us. The team was just like, whatever. So what do we do now? And so Rob speaks perfect Spanish. I think he got us up into the, the premium area on the 10th floor. There was a lounge. And so all of our team was like, I get small spoon, I get big spoon. They're finding sofas and all of that. And they were just laughing and having a great time with it. And they just completely embraced it. And it was no big deal that we had nowhere to sleep the first night that we got there. So it's this tiny but powerful I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, powerful and tiny moment with our team on how to, as a team, embrace these curveballs that come our way. And speaking of goosebumps, our team, they either laugh at me or with me, but I get goosebumps regularly. Somebody will do something. She's been working really hard, and she'll finally get it and do it, and I'll just go nuts, and I'll have goosebumps all over, and I think they're laughing at me, not with me, but I'm okay. Being a volleyball nerd, that's all right. I'm loud and proud in terms of volleyball nerdship. And, but they do know I can't fake it. I'm super excited for them when they do something like that. That's not something you can fake. But they think it's a little strange, and that's okay too. So one of our team members, Carly Lloyd, one of our setters over the last few years, who has gone through some pretty powerful adversity in various times in her life. She decided, I think it was kind of the end of the 2015 season, she had not been invited on any of our main travel teams, but had a great performance and a great experience at the 2015 Pan Am Cup, 2015 Pan Am Games. It was a really cool moment. Goosebumps again, sorry. One night in July of 2015, her team, our team in Pan Am Games in Vancouver beat Brazil to win the Pan American Games for the first time in about 40 years. And on the same night, the other half of our team beat Brazil in Omaha to win the World Grand Prix that year. That was a really cool double. Anyway, at the end of that season, she just decided, you know what, I've been carrying some things, and I want to just work on being present more and just being there for people and kind of let the experience wash over me more and be less concerned about implications and outcomes and things that are going to happen tomorrow, and just be present. And she used to laugh at me about the goosebumps thing. But now, I've never heard of this, but, ooh, and I got them again here. She gets them like 6 or 7 times a day. She's had this unbelievable transformation through gratitude and mindfulness. And so we got to the point where in Rio, we would have like a fun gratitude contest of, all right, well, I'm at 4, what are you, like I had 3 goosebumps and she had 4, and we were just reveling in this incredibly challenging, physically challenging, mentally challenged experience that is the Olympic Games. But we have these neat little moments, and she, through that, I'm positive that was a big part of her coming to us in 2016 and performing at a level that she had rarely done before, and strongly earning a roster on our Rio 12. And so that was something that she took command of, something that I've never really heard of in terms of just impacting her daily little moments of joy. I'm a big believer that you shouldn't be waiting for these mega moments of joy, like a birth in the family, or a graduation, or a wedding, things like that. Because if we are, life's happening all the time in between, for the years in between. But we can have an impact on these daily moments, and we've got to find some daily moments of great joy and satisfaction, because life is not easy, life is relentless. Is that it? Good one to end on. Thank you all.